So it's a Q&A session about mental and emotional well-being for children, 7 to 11 years old. So we're looking at primary school age. It's pre-transition, so before they go into higher or secondary education, okay? And it's about a workbook called, Roxy's workbook I refer it to, but it's called, the workbook is called Roxy Says You Are Here. And we're going to talk some more about that. So, the workbook is called Roxy Says You Are Here. I thought it's best to put at least on one of the first slides a showing of the book and the cover, the front cover and the back cover, so that you can see what it is exactly. It's an interactive well-being workbook, and it's for adults to read with children, okay? There's a bit of information there about the back of the book. We're going to go through that later, a little bit more detail, but I just thought it'd be a good idea to show you what it looks like to start off with. Roxy is actually a dog, okay? So moving on. So today, what's the format going to be? What's the agenda? I want it to be an open questions and answers session, but I think that with the information that I've got, we might be giving you a lot of answers before you have the questions. So, well, you might have a lot of questions, but I'm going to give you hopefully lots of answers before we get to that section at the end where we do the questions and answers. So if you listen to the presentation and if you have any questions that you'd like to raise, you can type them in the chat window and then we can go through them as we're going along. But if we've got time, we're going to go through them at the end. So we've got two opportunities, okay? So I'm going to talk about who I am so that you know who I am. We're going to establish an understanding. I call it a shared understanding. So they all know where we're starting from, because we need to know what the picture is. And I've got some stuff to back that up because we've got some statistics. It's 7 o'clock in the evening here in the UK. It's evening time. We've all been busy during the day and we want to relax. So I haven't got too many statistics, but I do have something. They are relevant statistics. So, and of course, I'm going to talk about what the workbook is and its purpose, and how it may be relevant to you. Yeah. And hopefully time at the end for more questions. That's our format. So first, I'm going to start with who am I? Okay, so my name's Andrew Samuels. I have 2 children. I'm 49 years old. I worked in IT for quite a few years, but then I changed my career about 5 years ago into mental health. Some situations, some circumstances, life throws things at you, and you have to find your way. And I found this mental health subject area, and I wanted to know a little bit more about it. Someone very close to me had passed away through a suicide, and I couldn't really continue to go through my everyday life without finding out a little bit more about it. And the more I looked into it, the more significant it was. Okay, so I couldn't ignore it. So I had to change my career. So I've been working in mental health for 5 years or so. I've been working with Mind, in various different roles. You know, within Mind, working with Time to Change, another mental health charity in the UK, working with Rethink Mental Health. And all of this time, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been looking for a solution for mental health. I worked in IT before. In IT, if there's a problem, you just apply a patch and you fix it. So for a couple of years, I tried to look for a solution and I couldn't find one. And I continued to look, but I had to learn more. And I did some counseling courses, found out a little bit more about the human condition, learned a lot about children's mental health, learned a lot about human beings, mental health first aid, mental health awareness. So I really absorbed myself in order to be able to provide a solution. Yeah. So I want to talk, so if you need to know anything else about me, I'm happy to disclose anything, but we do need to press on. It's not all about me. Okay, it's actually about Roxy's book. But we need to establish really that there are some statistical evidence and research that's already out there that we should really be aware of if we're thinking about mental health, especially what this subject is about, mental health for children. So understanding a little bit more about what's really going on. So let me just confirm I don't know what level anybody's at. So I'm going to talk about these definitions. Mental health, not many people know what is mental health. That's someone else's problem, or, you know, they don't really understand. So here we go, we're going to define it. Mental health is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential They can cope with the normal stresses of life. They can work productively and fruitfully, and they're able to make a contribution to her or his community. That's it. Yeah. Being balanced. Another term I'd like to get over, resilience. Okay. So when we talk about resilience, we're talking about our ability to deal with stresses on a daily basis. It is relative to our capacity to bounce back. So we have something that happens, we want to bounce back. That's how resilient we are. If we can't bounce back, we're not very resilient. So we have coping strategies. So if we have better coping strategies that allow us to better manage ourselves and become more resilient. So resilience isn't just a thing, it's a combination of things that can help us to be resilient. And lastly, I need to define this. Stigma. So we've heard of stigma, and mental health stigma is the disapproval of a person based on an incorrect understanding of the individual or groups. It's a negative, uneducated assumption about one's behavior or conditions. So I could make a decision about somebody else that I believe is the case because I don't know any different, and I'm discriminating maybe against that individual because of what I think or is true, okay, without actually really fully understanding. So that would be stigma. And stigma in mental health is everywhere. And it prevents us from being able to become better and become stronger. That's why we need to know about it and we need to overcome it. So again, stats. I'm sorry, there's a few, but I have to go through these with you. So the NHS did a report called the Mental Health of Children and Young People. It's a survey. And it states, this is surprising, yeah, that boys are more likely to have a mental health disorder up to the age of 11. Up to 11. But between 11 to 16 years old, both genders, male and female, are equal. However, from the age of 17 to 19, girls are twice as likely. At this age, almost 1 in 4 girls, this is in the UK, had a mental disorder. And even more disturbing is 50% at this age said that they had self-harmed or attempted suicide. Okay, so this is an important fact. This is the NHS, National Health Service. And again, I'm going to take it a little bit further. This is another statement. In an average classroom in the UK, 10 children will have witnessed their parents separate. An average class is about 35 children. 8 will have experienced severe physical violence, sexual abuse, or neglect. 1 will have experienced the death of a parent, and 7 will have been bullied. Half of mental ill health starts by the age of 15, and 75% of those develop by the age of 18. I think these are shocking facts. And where you're going to get that information is Mental Health First Aid England, who provide mental health first aid for courses for the schools and for organizations, and also from the NHS. These are fairly well documented facts that you'll be able to find. I'm not making these up, but it's important for us to know these because of what I'm going to say next. So the psychological impact for a child with mental ill health continues or can continue on into adulthood. And there are plenty of stats about adult mental health. One of the significant areas is when we're going to talk about later is about when adults go for counseling because of their mental health issues. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but I think that's enough on the statistics. I'd like to just finish with the statistics, and I'll show you just this one last slide related to statistics. So this is the mental health for children, of children and young people survey from the NHS. When we talk about mental health, we're talking about disorders. Orders, okay, everything is in order. Disorder, it's not quite in order, okay? So we have emotional disorders, behavioral, hyperactivity, and other less common disorders, autism and eating disorders, and tic disorders. So emotional disorders, anxiety, depression, these are disorders that are probably the most common disorders in everywhere. Yeah. Behavioral disorders. Okay, so we've got things like violent behavioral disorders, and hyperactivity, impulsivity, things like that. Okay, so that's how they're defined in this report. That's why I've got that there. And don't be put off by the figures here. I just want to show you one particular area here that's in this report. Okay, so I don't know if you can see my mouse, but in the center section there, we have 5 to 10-year-olds. Okay, this is the band that we're looking at. And those 3 columns, we've got boys, we've got girls, and we've got everybody. Okay, we've got 1999, 2004, and 2017 when these studies, these surveys had taken place. And what we can see here, if we look at 5 to 10-year-olds, is we can see in 1999, let's say we take that top figure, 10.8% of boys suffered with a mental disorder. Moving on 5 years to the next survey, it actually went down, 10.5 in 2004. Great news. But then if we look at 2017, we're going up 12.2%. So each 5 years we saw a drop, and then between 2004 and 2017, something happened. Okay, and that's the same for the girls, slightly lower for the girls, for that age group. But in general, we're going to see an increase. And the reason for that increase, I personally believe the reason for that increase is the availability of social media and smartphones having an impact on our child. That would have been around about 2013. Okay, so that's why we're seeing an increase. So it's documented that there is an increase. We already knew, really, but I had to show you the figures to show you that this is documented and this is quite clear. And there's the link there. So I want to talk to you now about the book. So we have a picture, really, of what is going on out there for young people. And these studies and surveys are from the age of 5. Now, my book, Roxy's book, is actually for 7 to 11 years old. So this is before you go to secondary education. But actually, I've had people recommend it for 5-year-olds as well. It depends on the reading ability of the child. However, the adult reads with the child. So let me go through a little bit of detail here about what this book is. And then we're going to talk about how it fits. Okay. The book is a storybook. Okay. At the very beginning of the book, there's a statement that says this book belongs to, and there's a space for the child to write their name so they have ownership of the book. There's a guide. There's a guide that takes you through how to use the book. You ask the child what they already know by going through a survey, and there's some simple instructions there on how to use it. There's also some contact information if you find yourself in any situation where you need to have access to services in the UK, and there's some links in there for you to call. Mental health support from the NHS, Young Minds, and some helplines. You can just put your postcode in and it'll find local services for you. We have a survey at the very beginning of the book. Now, what we're doing here with our book is we're measuring 3 things. It's really important that we're able to measure these things because we want to measure improvement. And the 3 things that we do with this book is we raise awareness for the child and the adult about mental health. Because once you know it, then you can do something with it. We reduce stigma so that it's more acceptable for you to talk about it. And we encourage resilience. So that's being able to give the child the ability to bounce back. Those are the 3 things that we want to do with this book, and it does. And the way that we're going to start to understand how to do it is we're going to measure these 3 things. So there's about 9 questions at the very beginning. There's the beginning there, a couple of questions, you just fill in the answers. What do you know? And we're just trying to create a baseline so we know where we are. And then there's a total, we fill in the total. So we've got a figure, we've got a score from the very beginning. Where are we starting from? As I said, it's a storybook. So it's a story about a dog called Roxy. And the dog goes through some experiences with her mum, who's also a dog, and her friends who are different animals. And throughout the stories, there are highlighted emotional and feeling words. The stories have an emotional high. They're very simple stories. They're everyday experiences. There's nothing traumatic in there. They are designed in order for you to have that space where anybody can empathize with these situations and imagine them and imagine being in those situations. So we have an emotional high in the story, and then we don't go any further, we diffuse it, and then we have a happy ending at the end of every story. But throughout the stories, there are these emotional words. And what we do with these emotional words is we're giving emotional vocabulary. So children are able to talk about their emotions and their feelings. We have a glossary inside the book. So it's about 9 pages of emotional, those highlighted words and more, and their meanings. So we give the emotional vocabulary so that children, as I said, can talk and express how they feel. It's a very important thing. At the end of every chapter, we have exercises, and this is where the book comes into its own. We have exercises which help we first decide, we know this is emotional story, it's emotional words. So we establish that there is an understanding, comprehension of the story. And then we have other questions which are about empathy, understanding the feelings of the characters in the book. And then we have questions which tease out the emotional responses from the child. So we have an opportunity for the child to disclose how they feel or if they have been in those situations. So it's all very, very subtle, and the questions are there for you to ask. But actually, one of the things is that as adults, we don't really know. We were all children once, but we don't really know what it was like or what it's like for children today. We can't. They've got smartphones, social media, different influences, the telephone, the television, the internet. I only had 5 channels on TV when I was growing up. They've got a whole load of stuff that they're influenced by. But the thing is, as a child, the feelings of frustration or anger are the same feelings that we had and we have. So what we can do is using this story and empathizing with the characters' feelings in the book, we can disclose how we dealt with those emotions and feelings when the child discloses how they feel. It's talking therapy. Yeah, it's being able to talk about your emotions and feelings. It's not an easy thing for some people to do. And certainly for children, as they get older, they don't want to talk about their emotions and feelings because it's not cool. We also have at the end of the exercises, if anything is disclosed, we've got space in there for you to create an action plan. So you can write down any comments. You've been talking with the child, and you can say, okay, well, we found this out. So what should we do? What are we going to do? Well, what we're going to do, who's going to do it, and when are we going to do it? And you can action this before you start the next chapter. So we're actually doing something constructive to support the child. And at the very end of the book, we have each chapter has a different moral, if you like. Yeah, there's a learning process throughout. In fact, the last chapter is probably the most important because it's actually about belief. Yeah, having belief in yourself. But actually, when you finish the whole book, there's another survey similar to the one at the beginning, and we take exactly the same questions and we get the totals. We ask the questions again, we total them up, we have the previous totals, and we can measure a change. Because those questions are designed, they're about awareness, they're about stigma, and they're about resilience or empowerment. So that's what the book is about. Where does it fit? Now, as I said, it's about raising awareness, reducing stigma, and providing resilience. So if you're a mental health professional, okay, this slide is a bit heavy, actually, because there's a lot of text in there. But if you just listen to me, you don't have to read it. I'll read it. So if you're a mental health professional, this can benefit, if you're working with a child, great. Can benefit children, but also it can benefit adults as well who need to communicate better with their children. We need to make that human connection. There's plenty of adults stats out there for adults, and you can see the trend. This is education for adults to educate with the child. And they're both learning, and the best thing we can do is actually to have men read books with children. Because the highest rate of, one of the significant mental health issues that we have in the world, the highest rate of suicide, in fact, is with men between the ages of 45 and 49. And that's documented on the Office of National Statistics. You can have a look at that if you want to. So having men use this book to talk about emotions and feelings of a character, but using their own experiences to express to the child how the child can handle their emotions and feelings if they're empathizing with the character in the book, is a perfect fit. And we have, you know, when we talk about suicide, one of the things that's prevalent at the moment with children, certainly older children, is self-harming. It's always in the news. Yeah, so there is a reason why children self-harm. It's because they cannot, they're trying to secretly find a way to express an emotion because they can't talk. So we're seeing a rise. The Office of National Statistics in 2018 did a report. It was all in the papers and everything, that there's a rise in suicide rates with teenagers. And we have greater instances now of self-harm. So there's a trend. You can see the trend in the report. You can see where this is going. We need stability for young people, and we need to start early. Okay, so for parents, and I mean, I don't need to talk to mental health professionals. They know what the score is. I'm just putting it out there to let you know that I know. So parents, carers, grandparents, your experience is valuable. Grandparents, oh gosh. So with the knowledge you have today, and understanding that you'll have today after this session, you can see hopefully how you as a parent can create this psychological space. I call it a psychological space because with a child, when you create this space where they're able to talk about their emotions and feelings, that's something psychologically you're establishing in their world. They can talk freely about how they feel with someone that they care about, or someone that at least is safe. My personal opinion thing is that it's ideal for grandparents to be reading this with grandchildren. So we're creating this emotional space. So when children later on in life need to talk, they have already established a space in their lives where they can, with a person that's safe. So it's really important that we do this, and you should do it. The reason why it's primary school age is because that's the age where children, you can still talk to them. They still like getting tucked in and getting hugs and getting kisses. They're able to talk. It's when they hit secondary education that things are going to change. So before that happens, give them that space. That's the point of this book. So you can wait for the schools to do this. The schools have a responsibility to fulfill in their curriculum, education relating to relationships and health. But actually, this isn't something that I think that you need to just let the school deal with, because they're only going to do a certain remit. You are the person who's best placed to do that. You're the person that they're going to come to later on in life when they need to talk, not the teacher. They need to stay in the family. Yeah. And we all have that responsibility. We all have that responsibility as parents to help our children to be the best that they can possibly be, and not for them to have anything that's going to hold them back. Grandparents, wow, what can I say? They are the role models. Yeah, these are the role models. When we look at children in secondary education nowadays, and we're saying there's a wave of mental health issues, it's because we have allowed this to happen. Yeah, with social media and smartphones, our backs were turned. We didn't know what was going on. This happened, and these children were under this influence, and we allowed it to happen, really. But equally so, there's a corresponding generation of elders who should have been connected at the same time that weren't. I see it because the charity I represent, we actually work with the elderly, although we're not doing so much at the moment because of the lockdown, but actually we do wellbeing projects with the elderly. Yeah, very successful. And that's why we sell this book, because that's what we're funding it for, so that we can do the project with the elderly. Okay, so we want, grandparents, if you're out there, connect, create that psychological anchor, establish that space with the child. So later on in life, when they need help and support, okay, a lot of parents are busy, but they can come back to their grandparents. they maintain a connection within the family, and so do you. That's how important that is. So it's called talking therapy, also known as psychotherapy. Yeah. And I don't know, it's effective at treating mood disorders in future, but only works when you can talk. With adults later on in life, maybe they need help, they need counseling, they need to be able to talk. And the reason why counseling takes so long to work with a lot of people is because they don't know how to talk. There's a phrase, I don't know, you must have heard it. A problem shared is a problem halved. Primary school teachers and educators, primary and secondary schools. The schools curriculum, it covers, as I said, relationship education. If you're in primary school, it's part of their requirement, and relationship and sexual education in secondary schools. So actually, we really want to be preparing children before they go to secondary education. We want them to be emotionally balanced and resilient. And that's why this book is positioned there. It's pitched at this particular audience. If your children are more emotionally balanced, if the children in your school are more and more emotionally balanced, they will make better students, they will support their peers better, and they will be better adults. And this can only reflect well on your school. And lastly, businesses. Yeah, if you're a business and you want to sponsor, this is one of the ways that we get the book out there, is if you're a business and you want to support the well-being of your local community and you want to show your presence, you can sponsor these books for the schools. Okay, we're going to run out of time. I've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to run through very quickly now. Self-harm, the very last thing about self-harm. Self-harm is more common among young people than other age groups, particularly young women. And this is where we're seeing the biggest increases too. Self-harm has a strong relationship to suicide. This is from the Office of National Statistics, a report that they did with, and this is a blog with a gentleman from the Office of National Statistics and a young lady from the Samaritans. So one last thing about the businesses. Businesses, you have the opportunity. The space created between the adult and the child is open. It's personal, it's sensitive, it's emotional, and it's safe. And your organization can be part of this space, a unique space, by sponsoring the workbook for your local primary schools and parents. We approach the schools, we say we have the books, and we give them to the schools for the parents. Yeah, we don't just give them, we actually do follow up. So you as an organization, as a business, you're associated with the project, but you're also associated to the charity and the work that we do for the elderly and the youth. There are limited classes in every borough. There are 48 in Harrow, I can tell you that now. Yeah, so there's 48 opportunities to sponsor a class. The workbooks are actually $9.99 each. You can buy them on the website or you can buy them on Amazon. I'll go through that in a second. But actually, if you're a business and you want to sponsor a class, that's 35 children, £10 per book is £350 for a class. What you get is this book, but actually the book is called You Are Here. This is where you will be. Sponsored by. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, please do. I'll open up the room for chat. Questions, if anyone's got any questions. Let's have a look now. How do we have any chat? Does anybody have anything that they'd like to share? Stop sharing. Okay, so if you don't have anything that you'd like to say, maybe I can continue and finish off with, maybe I've answered all your questions, which is fantastic, but I do actually have a little bit more that I'd like to share with you. Okay, so let's go back here. You can email me any questions. So here is my email address, andrew.samuels@mind-angels.com. We do take feedback very seriously. If you have any feedback that you'd like to give us, you can go here to this evaluation page and give us some feedback. Hang on. That's the charity's website. We also have a wellbeing course that we deliver for free. If you know anybody who could do it with any help to balance their mental, physical, and spiritual parts, it's the charity's website /help. And I want you to thank you for taking part and being in the session with me today. It's very important that we share this information. And there's a lot of information, I know, but it's important information. And I think it's really important to ask this one question. The first question, I say, why? Why should we do this? Why should we do this? That's the first question. Hang on. Have you had foster carers use this book and given you feedback? No, actually, we're reaching out to foster carers. We have reviews on the website from mums, from psychologists, from mental health professionals. The last review that we had was from a mum of a 7-year-old. One of the last, before that, was from a Key Stage 2 primary school teacher. Please do go to the website and have a look at the reviews that we have, which will give you the indication of how well the book works. In addition to that, the last review is the one that I would say we had just after the lockdown, which perfectly describes what the book does. Yeah, it wasn't actually until I got that review that I knew that we had something that, you know, it does what it says on the tin. It was all theory before that, so I know that it works. But this is a very important question. The question is why? Why should we do this? And there is only one reason why. Actually, I looked around for a picture quite a long time ago that I wanted to use a picture to explain why this was so important. And I just went all over the place looking for the right image. I actually got this picture. I went to a place called the Museum of the Mind down in Bermondsey. I think it was Bermondsey, South London, Southeast London somewhere. And this was painted by a lady called Marion Patrick. And when I look at this picture tells me why. Yeah, it's about children. It's about our future. It's about their future. If we do not educate children, all that's going to happen is they will end up with the same problems as we're having, if not more. So, and they are our future. So we want them to be the best possible because they're the ones who are going to be looking after us. So that's the only reason that you need. Yeah. And when you're a parent, actually, you know, every child is your child. And this book is for every child. Okay. So if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to take some. Oh, here we go. We've got some more questions. Okay. Oh, excellent. That's excellent news. Thank you very much. We definitely have to break the circle. It's it's about education. It's always about education, isn't it? Yeah. Once you know, then you can't ignore it. How can we allow this to continue to happen, especially with our own children? When I think about my son's 16, my daughter's 22, and I think about them, if they were one of those statistics, I just couldn't live with that. And that's motivation enough. And they're older kids now, but the kids today, you know, these young children are innocent. They need protecting. That's our job. That's our job. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody, for taking part. Please, there is the link for the website. You can go to mind-angels.com/reviews, and that will take you to the website. I'll send you another link, another email. Thank you very much. You can go to have a look at the reviews. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, please do email me. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye for now. Take care.